Guys, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Advisory Board podcast, where we bring in franchising experts that can give you actionable insights to help you build your business. And I've got with me a friend of mine that a lot of you probably know, Liane Caruso. And we're going to talk a little bit today about franchise development marketing strategies, things that maybe you haven't thought about, things that work that aren't, the standard playbook from 1984 that everyone's following. So guys, if you don't know Liane, let me just brag on her for a second. About 15 years of franchise marketing experience, both on the agency and the brand side. She's worked with dozens of brands. She's the founder of Hello CMO. She's the co-founder of the Let's Grow event. If you haven't been to that, that's a phenomenal event. It just started this year, and also the Franchise Assembly Group with Michael Hyam. So she's all over the place. They're building out mastermind groups for CMOs in this industry. Like, Liane is plugged in. So Liane, if you don't mind, I won't brag anymore. And you tell us just a little bit more about you. Tell us kind of what you're working on right now.
Yeah, so I'm working on a lot. I don't sleep. People ask me, how do you do what you do? And I don't sleep well. And that's really my trick. I can fit a lot more in that way. But yeah, no, we're working on, I'm really excited that Let's Grow took off the way that it did. So we just had our first event in Dallas, and we're about to do an event in Toronto in November. So super excited about that. And we already have next year's Dallas booked for Let's Grow in the US again. We just got such great feedback, and I'm super thrilled about how that's going. So working on producing those events, as well as the masterminds. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I talk about the masterminds a lot. It's a passion project for me. We started with franchise executive CMOs and VPs of marketing. I think oftentimes those kind of roles get stuck in the day-to-day and don't get to go to a lot of conferences, don't get to reach out to fellow CMOs and like, who's struggling with this issue, or how are you handling this? And so bringing people together. We also just launched the Executive FranDev Mastermind. So very excited about that. And then in my spare time, my day job, which is franchise marketing consulting, where I get to go into brands and work with suppliers as a fractional CMO, and really try to make some impact, put process and operations and marketing strategy in place.
Awesome. Well, as you probably know, we've got a lot of franchise brands that listen in. Some of them are emerging, some of them are growing, some of them are even well established. But I hope that guys, today you'll listen in, because if you didn't hear what you should be hearing is Liane's going to share some insights with us today that would probably cost you a lot of money. And be well worth the money, by the way. But like, I want you guys to come to the well and dip in deep, drink of the water of Liane, and try to implement this stuff into what you're doing right now, because you'll learn at least 2 nuggets today, I'm sure, that you ought to be implementing tomorrow into your franchise. So let's dive in, Liane, because I want to. I mean, you're obviously listening to the marketplace and hearing so many different perspectives, which gives you unique perspectives on franchise development marketing. What are you seeing right now as things that are changing or challenges in the industry that people are trying to tackle?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's interesting because we're all in the same pond fishing for the same person to become a franchisee. And so that in itself is a bit of a challenge, and everybody has limited budgets. And I think 2 of the biggest problems, at least foundationally, before they even get started, is not understanding their costs to acquire a franchise prospect or candidate, because they're not putting the right budgets in place. Most of the people are expecting to bring in 20 candidates, 20 new franchisees, but they have the budget to bring in 5. So that in itself is a big problem. So understanding where your budget needs to be in order to attract the right quality candidate to bring in, and not putting all your eggs in one basket, but we could talk about that later.
Oh yeah.
And then the other issue I see foundationally is not having a marketing person helping to run your sales campaigns. So you often have the marketing and sales teams like this, and the sales are out there, which is the FranDev team, trying to engage in marketing tactics, but really they just need to be focused on sales, and marketing isn't their strong point. So marketing should be a supporting role to the sales team, not the sales folks shouldn't be also doing marketing. So I found that the companies that actually have marketing and sales alignment and brand consistency are actually kind of ahead above because they have a real marketing strategy in place and the right people are managing that strategy.
Can we talk about that for a second? This is like an age-old debate, but I think we should just put it to bed because I'm an old sales dog, right? But I've been doing that since I was 5. Like started my first company, went door to door and embarrassed my mother because she thought I was napping. And so, but like I've just always kind of had that in me, and yet the philosophy for the longest time has been, well, sales is sales and marketing is marketing, and stay out of my way. Like, that, and it's been both ways, but you're describing a more synergistic approach where there's really, you're leveraging strengths of both. What do you see as the right balance there? And let's maybe give some people some insights and maybe help them calm down about the fact that I don't want marketing messing with sales and vice versa.
Yeah, it has to mess with sales. Marketing is a supportive function to sales through and through. I mean, you're not going to sell an Orange Theory membership if you don't have some sort of marketing behind it. So,
Yeah.
like it's the same with franchise development. And I think people have to get out of the way or get in the way, actually, maybe that the sales and marketing teams need to be aligned, and the marketing has to have the same messaging. It has to have the same campaign style. The website should be similar, and give the salespeople what they need to be successful. And what you have, unfortunately, is salespeople trying to figure out marketing. They're engaging with different agencies than the brand is, working with. They're engaging with different they got a different website vendor, and they're doing this all on their own without the support of the marketing teams. The marketing teams are solely focused on consumer because that's what they were brought on to do. And they also don't understand franchise development marketing. If you have some sort of liaison between the two departments, and then the CMO or VP of marketing is overarching to both efforts, then I think that's where you have to be. But leaving the sales folks out there managing the marketing is frustrating for everyone.
Right. Well, it sounds kind of like you're creating franchise marketing schizophrenia. If you, I mean, that's the way Google looks at it too. And the SEO, if you've got a FranDev site that's hosted and managed by a separate group, then the consumer marketing site, and they're linked, Google's going to be like, wait, what the heck? What is the brand promise? What are the brand key points? What is it? Especially if they're on like a subdomain to the parent, like that'll be a bigger mess, right? But that's maybe a little too nerdy. I'll push my glasses up for this conversation, right?
That is a big debate. That is a big marketing nerd debate. And FranDev is where your website should sit. Like, should it sit on a subdomain or separate? So
I've asked the question.
I don't know if you want to go there.
Like, I'm going to go there. Like, why not? So what is I will say, what is your informed opinion on that, Liane? What do you recommend?
I'm gonna piss some people off.
piss away. Like I think a truth is true. Like, and you've got perspective and experience that would back up your opinion. So I'm really curious, actually.
Yeah, I think having a separate franchise development website is probably best. The argument of keeping it on your website is that your main website has more SEO and has more, I always say SEO juice, which is not the right words to say, but more SEO juice than a standalone site. But the fact of the matter is, your people who are searching for franchise development or franchise opportunities are not looking for gym memberships. So yes, it's got more juice, but it's not the right kind of juice that you need. So if you have the whole focus on one website that is, highly SEO optimized, has the right keywords, then you're going to drive traffic to a standalone website where people aren't going to get lost in the consumer side. Yes, they can link back to the website, and yes, they can go back to this website, but the content is solely directed towards the task at hand, and that's to convert that candidate into a prospect.
Right. I mean, it's funny that this argument even exists because, like, from an outsider looking in, I'm not a marketing pro. I've just been so tied to marketing for so long that I feel like I think this way. I'm a good comm strategist, but I'm not like the best marketer in the world. But boy, if you understand how SEO works and how Google's been changing, even like the Hummingbird, go back a couple of updates, and like, how did that affect how people should be changing their SEO strategy? Like, I feel like some people are just malinformed, or they just don't want to change. They're like, yeah, it's been working, why change it? But it's not working as well because you're confusing the voice, and Google's paying attention to quality content. And
That's
and
right.
if you have, but you have to think about the consumer, the actual buyer, the avatar. If I have an
Right.
avatar who's looking for a gym membership, why the heck are they going to be looking for a franchise right now, and vice versa? You said it perfectly. So I have seen, and I will make a slight counter argument in that if you're an emerging brand and all you've got is your real SEO on your parent page, and then start there. Like start there with like your
Right.
friend, like buy a franchise here, but very quickly separate the two so you don't confuse Google. But harness a little bit of your SEO. Always have that link from the parent page over to your separate domain, but you're going to screw up your SEO if you start putting a ton of content for FranDev on your consumer site, and vice
Right.
versa.
Yep.
Okay.
Agree.
Well, let's high five to that one. I think we're on the same page. All
Yeah.
right. So listen up. Liane said it first. She's smarter than I am. So all right. So let's talk about a couple of key things. And you and I have chatted about this a little before, but there are three areas where I think a lot of brands are missing the mark. And so let's highlight those, and let's jump into them.
Okay.
So not having like a multi-touch strategy. Some people are very flat, or they're very kind of like unilateral and like, well, we're going to do this. We're doing Facebook. Cool. But like, we need to talk about multi-touch strategies, nurturing candidates through a funnel. Boy, like so close to my heart. Like I'm happy to talk about that one. And then, but the one that I love, it aligns with like guerrilla marketing. If you've read that, some of these cool strategies people are using that are low budget but high yield ways to get candidates through the door. Like, what are some strategies you've seen work that aren't the typical FranDev playbook that
Mhm.
worked well? I'd love to make sure we have plenty of time to dive into that today too.
Sure.
But let's talk
Got
about
it.
number one. So,
Okay.
why do you advocate for building a true multi-touch marketing strategy? And what does that even mean? Let's start with that for those who might not know.
So multi-touch strategy means that they're getting hit in multiple places. So because we all receive, and first of all, we all receive information in different ways. There are lots of different ways that we're getting hit with information. We're on our phones, we're on our computers, we're driving by a billboard, we're touching direct mail. Depending on where you are in that moment, right? Like whether or not you're able to receive that information, or is it just like a little ping, or is it just like, oh yeah, I wanted to do that. I mean, it used to be, I think, 7 touches that you used to react to information, and now I think it's probably 20 or 30.
Yeah.
So we have to have things in multiple places because people might not be in the moment to receive that information, and they receive information differently. So multi-touch, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't just do PPC, because they might be on Facebook, or they might be, on FBR's website looking for franchise opportunities, or they might be on, a portal site, or they might receive information in the mail and be like, oh yeah, I saw something about that. I am in the market.
Yeah. Well, and you just rattled off a couple, but it's funny because I hear a lot of people that are like, well, Facebook marketing doesn't work. and I'm like, well, I've got a lot of data that shows otherwise, but
Yeah.
tell me why, or they'll say, well, I've done PPC and it was a waste of money. Sometimes it is, but that's because maybe your SEO sucks. And so your ad scores are terrible. And so you're not getting prioritized, right? Like, I don't know, your budgets are wrong. We talked about budgets, right? So they're like, I feel like all of these things have so many dimensions to them that if you don't align them, they won't work. It's
Right.
like putting your spark plugs in wrong. It's a nice engine, but it's just gonna seize up and blow a gasket. So
Right.
sorry for the car reference. I'm not even a car guy. That just came to my
Okay.
mind.
It's okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about this for a minute. So what do you see working well as far as multi-touch strategies for FranDev? And maybe let's break it into, I think it's different for an emerging brand than it is for an established brand too, because you can ride the tailcoats of some of the brand recognition here. So let's talk emerging brands for a minute. What do you see that works well there?
So emerging brands are tough. Sorry, everyone, but if you're an emerging brand out there, but they're tough, and it requires money, and it requires people to know who your brand is. And so the difference that that an emerging brand has versus an established brand is brand recognition. And when you don't have brand recognition and you're not a household name, it's going to be a lot harder to be in that competitive space and have someone decide that they want to research your company.
Yeah.
So even if you're on a portal, you're sitting there among hundreds of other brands, and they're going to go to the logos that they know. So, excuse me, a lot of it is having your name everywhere and having the budget to do so.
Mhm.
So you have to just be in multiple places. So as these opportunity seekers are doing their research, and it's proven that they're doing their research well before they fill out a form, so
Yeah.
that they're doing their research and that you are showing up in the places that you need to show up among the competitors. That's going to cost you money. So having, if it's a PPC campaign, and the problem with PPC campaigns is they work for some and not for others, but that is a pricey investment for you to do, because you're competing with the big guys. You're competing with the portals. You're competing with all of the people who are sucking up that franchise opportunity keyword. So
Mhm.
that's a big problem. And if you don't have the budget to do that, then you have to find other ways to do that, to put your name out there. So a lot of people then go to Facebook, and Facebook is a bit challenging. It has changed over the course of time because of because of the algorithm, because it's a pay to play model, and because we are under the housing and employment category. And so we can't hyper target customers, but you can do retargeting for people who have been to your website. You can get to people who are already in front of your brand.
Mhm.
There are companies out there who can use lists, which you can use that meet your target audience.
Mhm.
And that is one of the most cost affordable ways to get in front of people as an emerging brand.
Yeah, can we talk about the last one for a minute? I know there's so much we could unpack here, guys. I hope you're listening, because like emerging franchise brands, they're 400 a year, right? Or so. Edith Wiseman backed me up on that, but I'm pretty sure that's your number. So, like, there's a lot of these guys that are coming out every single year, and a lot of you are listening. So, you got to make sure that you understand that there's going to be a cost to play. The guys that have brand recognition and traction, they put in the dues to get to that point. They went. It's not like there's like a secret path that doesn't cost any money to get you there. There are only rare exceptions where you have like cult brands that shoot up out of nowhere. And I want to talk about something like that right now, because, well, not now, we'll do it in a minute, but like when we get to the section, we talk about like some creative ways. There are some creative ways that are kind of grassroots, and they don't cost as much, but that's only one strategy out of 7 you probably need to have in place. Facebook. I hear such rave reviews about it. I've seen crazy success with it, and I've also seen people fall on their face.
Mhm.
You mentioned lists. Like, what does that mean? And can you maybe explain to everybody, like, what do you need to have to make Facebook algorithms really work for you, to help the targeting work? Because if this isn't in place, this is why there's such a hit and miss, I think, on Facebook, because people are like, I threw money at it and it didn't produce. Yeah,
Right.
can you just pick demographics? But would you explain the list thing to everyone?
Sure. I mean, there's major data aggregators out there that have these lists that you can buy or you can purchase that meet the demographic of your ideal candidate.
Mhm.
So that's step number one, figure out who your ideal candidate is.
Yeah.
Then you can target them. But then you can buy those lists, you can upload those into Facebook, and then you can feed ads to them with your messaging. So there's so many variables at play here beyond getting in front of your candidate. Is the ad good? Do you have video? Do you have a retargeting strategy? There's so many different components to just boosting a post isn't really going to get you what you need.
Mhm.
But if you upload these lists into Facebook, then you can target the right candidate, the right prospect. And I think that's the way around Facebook's little hiccup that they've given franchising, that they didn't used to have before, but that really changed the way we had to market on Facebook. So I think the lists are really good. And a lot of these agencies that we have in franchising have access to those lists, and they have used them before, and just kind of leaning on those experts who have the relationship with Facebook. I guess we were calling it Meta now, but have the relationship with Facebook, are partners with Facebook, can buy the lists, purchase the lists, and upload them, and then target them in the right way. It's a bigger thing than just creating an ad on Facebook. There's such a science to it, and I think leaving that to the experts is really important.
I agree with you. And I know some of the experts who really crush it on Facebook, but they're leveraging lists that they've built, right, on behalf of their clients, where
Right.
they've gone to, let's say, MUFC for the last like 8 years. So they have, tens of thousands of multi-unit
Yes.
franchise owners, and that becomes the list. And this is, I mean, really quick, and it's oversimplified because I'm not an expert here, but I've had experts on before who have explained it to me, so I know a bit. If you upload a list into Facebook, guys, and you can create what's called a lookalike audience, and the AI backend of Facebook will then take people and it'll match, I think, what, like 85% match of that persona you've built with your list. They'll go out and put your ads only in front of the people that match that list. If you don't have much of a list, if you put in like 20 people, it'll do nothing, right? If you put in 400 people, it'll do very little. You have to have about, what, 1,000?
1,000. Yeah.
Yeah, this makes the list a barrier for entry for the new guys. So you have to find a way to get that list, and sometimes you got to go pay for it, really, unless you have a partner that you'll pay for it through the partner if they've got the list and it's worth the money, because they've spent, that list itself is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, right, in and of itself. And so if they can let you leverage it, great. And if not, I mean, go to MUFC, pay the money to go to MUFC and get the list. And then you have a good targeting list to start from. Or, I mean, there are ways to target your clients, but your clients are usually not your ideal candidates because you don't know any of their demographic information and psychographic information. So that's why some of these other lists are way better, but they're going to cost you, if you want to show up and get that list.
Right. Yeah. It's expensive.
It is.
Everything is expensive. And I would say, since we're talking about marketing, or like we're talking about Facebook, I would say the one thing I suggest not doing, and I think this becomes this is why people think Facebook doesn't work, is I really don't like the form fill on Facebook. So if we're feeding you an ad and then they fill out the form on Facebook, yes, you're going to get hundreds of more leads because it autofills, it auto populates, but that person hasn't gone to your website. That person hasn't done their research. That person hasn't self-disqualified themselves because they haven't seen your pricing. They're just like, hey, this looks like a cool restaurant opportunity, and they just hit send, and your FranDev person gets hundreds of these leads, but they haven't even done their research. This is the balance of the number of leads versus number of quality leads. We really want the leads that are going in to have at least gone to your website and done the poking around a little bit, done their research, then filled out the form before they get to you. You can track that from Facebook, that they left Facebook, went to your site, filled out a form. You can track all of that. So I'd rather them fill out the form on your website than through the form on Facebook.
Yeah. And I'll share, not quite a counterpoint, but to support that, if there's zero friction in the process, and maybe you start frictionless, right? Maybe you start with a Facebook form because you want volumes of leads. You'll soon find that you're spending a lot of time. It's about human capital. How much human capital have you got to spend? So if you're spending tons of human capital on the top of funnel trying to follow up with all these leads that are lower quality, then you don't have the human capital to close deals and move people through the funnel. So you got to think of it in that way. I do like, if you do insist or you want to use Facebook forms, you've got to add in a couple of custom questions. Like if you just use the default form by itself, it'll just be like click and things will pop into your CRM. And then you're going to get what you paid for. But if you add a couple of custom questions, add a little friction to that process, so they can't just click a button and go back to eating Cheetos and watching CSI, right? And that's not your ideal candidate typically, guys. So, but what you can do is add a couple of those additional questions. So they have to stop and think. And usually the people that are they're just piddling around, they'll stop and they won't finish filling out the form, which also means you're not going to pay as much for that interaction with Facebook. So I would recommend adding some friction there if you're going to stay on Facebook platform. You get better conversion if you stay in platform, but if you add a little bit of friction, move them outside of the platform to your own forums, give them a chance to read more content on your landing page that you should be pushing them to, better. But if you're not getting tons of volume, maybe you find the balance point somewhere in the middle, right? Is that fair, Liane?
Yes. Yeah, that's totally fair. I think the goal also is just to get everybody to to get to your website. And then you can really start implementing some retargeting tactics, but yeah, whatever you can do to get people to your website.
Talk about that for a second though, because if you stay in platform on Facebook, you don't get that, right? You don't get the retargeting options because you're not gathering the pixel. Talk a little bit about why that's so important, please.
Right. So when you drive traffic to your website, whether it be through blogs or articles or pay-per-click ads or, backlinks or whatever the case may be, you want to, or social media, you want to drive traffic to your website. Your website then collects all of this information, and then you can, through various different tactics, but Facebook is one of them, you can retarget people who have visited your website. And so then you have then you've got somebody who's down the funnel a little bit because we know they've raised their hand. We know they've gone to your website. We can also set it up that we know they didn't fill out a form. So you're not spending money on somebody who's already filled out a form. They've gone to a certain page on your website. You can track all sorts of different things. That's really great. And then you hit them with messages on Facebook and Instagram about your opportunity. And these are a little bit different messages. These aren't top of the funnel people. These are people who we know are searching for something, and we can kind of speak their languages a little bit more. Maybe we talk more about the investment, or we talk more about, the day-to-day type stuff. So it's a big strategy if you can start nurturing people throughout the funnel.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And thank you. That's exactly right. No surprise there, guys. So talk to me just a little bit about, so we're talking about like franchise strategies. It requires money, right? It requires money. There are lots of different channels we can target through. We've talked about Facebook. We've talked a little bit about PPC. You've talked about now retargeting, right? Getting them to the page so you can grab their cookie, right? Through a pixel, that start retargeting them on multiple channels, display ad networks, whatever. Where else have you seen? Are there any other channels we should be talking about that people just aren't using right now?
Yeah, well, just aren't using. I mean, I think
They should be using.
they should be using. I mean, this is all about budgeting, right? I mean, they have this much budget, this big of goals, and so they have to make choices. I definitely think that some of the regional expo shows are really good for some brands. That's another one that has a lot of variables at play, but I think that's kind of an in-person. You're meeting somebody who got into their car on a Saturday or Sunday, drove all the way to a convention center because they're that far down the funnel. Or they're that interested in opening a franchise opportunity. And so I think you can get right in front of them. You don't lose them, on multiple website pages. You just get the chance to show who you are and tell your brand story and potentially meet with them. So I kind of think that offline approach is a nice thing to have if there are any shows that are in your specific market. I think that's a great opportunity. Then you've got the brokers, the portals, all of those things. If you decide to go with the broker route, I mean, you have to put a lot of time and energy into the brokers, and that's its own strategy in itself. So you have to be prepared for the work that goes into that, and the money, the investment is different. It's just a different way that the money, the investment part of that.
Yeah.
So, but if you don't have an inside salesperson, or if you don't have anything, you need some help getting started, brokers might be a good path for you.
Yeah.
And then I think a lot of people are kind of going back old school and doing some direct mail. There's this really cool opportunity that we're testing with a brand. It's called TV. No, it's called website to mailbox. And it's a retargeting tactic of people who came to your website, and then you send them a direct mail piece. It's automatic, like it's all set up on your, through your cookies and stuff. So your IP address. And so I think, like, what an interesting way to cross from digital to direct mail, because I think people, like we were just talking about, people are getting hit with messages all over the place digitally. And so if you get something in the mail, and Franchise Update, MUFC, FCXE, they do a great job with this. I think, like, they have really solid pieces that they send in the mail, and you touch them, it's sitting on your desk, you're constantly looking at it, and the message doesn't go away. I mean, so I think maybe going back old school and going to direct mail or catalogs like people used to do might be a great way to get in front of candidates who are further down the funnel.
Yeah, I agree. And you can blend the media too, right? So why not send out, even if you send out a piece and you have the QR codes, they can scan it, then get back into a digital property where you can get more control and dynamics.
Yes.
The staying power, I've done a couple of podcasts now with people that run direct mail companies. The staying power of like a mailer is like 17 times longer than an email staying power or a text. It's like a lot longer than text, right? Because those are intrusive and personal media, and from text to email, there's a big drop off in how personal it is and how much engagement. But then the mailer, I've got let notes on my desk or mailers sitting over here that I really liked. Some of them have been there for like a year and a half on my desk. Thank you
Right.
notes, handwritten things. Man, it's about cutting through the clutter. That's what really marketing is
Right.
all about. And if you want to cut through the clutter, guess what the open rate is on mail?
What's
The
that?
open rate's like 98% on mail,
Mm,
unless it's clearly like spam. People
right.
give it away, but they've at least seen it and touched it. That's a brand experience if your brand's on
Right.
it. But more importantly, if you do it right, like a postcard, 100% open rate, because as soon as they touch it, they've opened it, right, and seen the
Right.
message. So yeah,
Right.
I love that. That's cool. Tell me a little bit about, so we talked about getting candidates into the funnel. What are some of the things that you see that people that are being successful are doing to nurture the leads that are hitting their funnel?
Well, probably going to speak your language here, but I think email nurturing is huge. I mean, I think staying top of mind with people, because like we said earlier, people are distracted all the time,
Mhm.
and they're might not be ready to make a decision right in that moment, or they're about to go on vacation. But if you're staying top of mind in their email inbox, and you've got different pieces of information that you're helping do the research for them, whether it be videos, a day in the life of a franchisee, franchisee testimonials, the investment piece of it, the technology, the support, all of those really important things that people need to know. If you stay top of mind, that's not the email. Those aren't the emails they're going to delete if they're truly interested. They just might not be ready right now. And so I'm sure you have lots of data on like which emails they open, how often you need to send, and all of those things. But I think that having a solid email nurture campaign is really important. And then having a monthly or quarterly newsletter where it's just more specific to say, these are the highlights of what's going on in our company. These are the new franchisees that signed, like another franchisee testimonial. Just constantly staying top of mind if you can.
Yeah, well, that's what it's about. It's about owning mind share.
Mhm.
We can talk about channels of nurturing in a second as well, because I'd like to get your thoughts on not just email nurturing, but omni-channel nurturing, right? You've got display ads, you've got emails, you might have text messaging. I think that's a bit of a game changer in the industry. But on the email blast, I've got a big brand that we're working with now, and he just told me last week, he's like, Dave, he's like, we do email blasts every month. He's like, last year we closed 2 deals from just email blasts, and they're an
Right.
established brand. They've got a good database, but you can't underestimate the value of staying in touch with your candidates. Uh,
Mhm.
because at some point, what is it, like 2% of the addressable market's ready to buy at any given time? Like,
Mhm.
you got 1,000 people in your database and you're not touching them, you might have up to 20 people that are ready to start investigating seriously and making a decision about maybe buying a business. It's probably slightly smaller in FranDev because that's a major capital
Yeah.
investment. Even if it's 1%,
Mhm.
like, look at your database. That's 10 people out of 1,000 that are like, I might be ready to buy. So you got to touch
Right.
them with value-added content, not pitchy stuff. Right.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not pitchy.
What kind of content? You mentioned it before, but like day in the life, like success stories, like what are some other content ideas that tend to resonate best with people?
Yeah, I think I think information. Again, I think what they really need to hear from is other franchisees. So that validation piece, video, like making it real, getting to know the people behind the brand. I think that's so important, because if you can't go to an expo and meet the people, you're meeting the CEO, the founder's story, the vision of the company, and happy franchisees. All of those things are just so important. And if they don't take the time because they're busy or whatever to go to your website and search for information, bring it to them. And I think that's what's really important. Every email should just have a different like target, different, this is what we're going to talk about in this email. And it just make it a 12-step process or an 8-step process, whatever your brand can handle. But I think that's just so important. I think telling the story,
Mhm. Yeah.
that it's emotional to some people. Some people it's a business transaction, so they just want to know the numbers. And then
Uh-huh.
other people it's emotional. They're giving their retirement fund or their, all of their money away and they want to know that they're putting it in the right place and with the right people. And it's a marriage. So I think
Mhm.
just again, meeting people where they are, whether it's an emotional purchase or a business decision, sometimes a combo of both. And
Mhm.
then I think speaking to them in their language. So
Yeah. I
Yeah.
heard
Personal.
somebody on a podcast before once say, like, the story that you tell needs to be from the eyes of the person that they want to become, which is not,
Yes.
it's not the founder, it's actually the franchisee. So you said that before, but I wanted to reiterate it. Like, you should be telling the story to your candidates from the perspective of the franchisees, which means success stories and testimonials and data points from them. And you also mentioned this, but I'm going to reiterate it. Uh, well, I'll rephrase it a little bit. Think about the top 5 questions that your franchisees have. Is it
Yes.
about financing? Is it about what is a day in the life like? Is it about what does setup and onboarding and technology look like? Like you were saying this, but I'm rephrasing it for you in a different light. If you think about those 5 things, what are the biggest concerns or biggest the challenges that you have to overcome in the process when you sell? Then you make sure that those are part of the first 5 messages in your nurturing campaign, and also address fear, just the fear of change, the
Yes.
fear of investment. Like, I think that's huge. And you know this as well as I do, probably better actually. So omni-channel. So texting, like, how are you seeing texting make a difference now in this ecosystem of nurturing candidates?
Yeah, I think texting is great, especially when they first enter your CRM. Like the first thing they should get is a text, because like you were saying, the open rate of a postcard is 100%, right? But I think text messages, people see it within 7 seconds. So they see it and they react to it generally quicker than an email. Email could be deleted, spam, all of those things. So I think if you have multi-touch, especially when they get into your CRM, and then multiple touches along the way, because some people just don't want to pick up the phone. Some people, I'm a texter, so I'd rather get the text than the phone call. I'll respond way quicker through text than phone call. So
Yeah.
again, that's get them where they are. And that means you have to be in front of them in lots of different ways.
I totally agree with you on that one. Couldn't agree more. I won't go down the rabbit hole because I think everybody knows I could preach on this one for a while, but there's a synergy factor here that you have to pay attention to. Email drips alone, that you have to have that as table stakes. Like, you've got to be doing that to stay in front of, but there are a lot of risks now, and Google just changed a bunch of stuff as well. And so is Microsoft, and so is Yahoo, and everyone's kind of shifting and trying to manage spam and control what's getting in front of people that have that have inboxes on their platforms. So you can't just rely upon it. But if you have like a text synergy as well, the open rates are at 90% are opened and read within like 2 minutes.
Right.
Way better than any email results ever, even when email just first came out. So you got to have that, and also there's a synergy between the text and the phone call, and the text and the email and the phone call. Most people do it backwards, like, get on the phone as fast as you can. False. Like that changed about 3 or 4 years ago. It's actually inverted now. Email, then a text, then a phone call. The text helps them know who you are, and if you put your name in there, which is legally required, by the way, guys, by TCPA, then most phone operating systems will say, oh, this might be Dave Hansen, instead of showing up as a spam caller, right?
Right.
So it helps a lot because they know who you are, so they'll pick up the phone more. It increases answer rates by 40%. So do it.
Right. And there's platforms that you can use, because a lot of these people submit their forms late at night or early morning. So the FranDev salesperson doesn't need to be like on call at 2 a.m. But
No.
there are ways to use platforms that can do that automated stuff for you, but in a personal way.
Yeah. Without being pluggy, I do know of at least one that does it real well. But
Yeah.
and let's talk about, so these are things I think a lot of people are aware of. Like, what would you share? Maybe a couple of insights on different pathways that you've seen work well that are maybe not the norm to generate franchise development leads.
Yeah, so I can use a couple of examples here. So I think, as I mentioned in the beginning, we're all fishing from the same pond, and it's a small pond. Just if you have a bigger boat, bigger fishing pole, maybe you're the one that's going to win. So I think if you look at your brand, and these are all a little bit different, but go outside the franchise opportunity seeker. I think that we automatically go straight to franchise opportunity seeker tactics, which is what we all just know, right? But if I could use a couple of examples, our friends at New Again Houses, so we're working with them on franchise development tactics and strategies, and they've got great opportunity and franchise opportunity seekers, but I think they have great opportunity with real estate agents and appraisers and inspectors and people who are real estate adjacent already, that know the industry, that are already entrepreneurial, like that might be struggling right now. So there's an opportunity to go beyond the traditional franchise outlets to get in front of people who would be ideal candidates for them. I always tell the story with Happy Cat Hotel with Chris Ramo. But he went the traditional route as well. But when he started doing things like CatCon and different cat enthusiast, expos and magazines, that's where he found his people. He started finding opportunity seekers who loved cats and who loved animals, and through a whole other avenue that, most of us in franchising probably would have been like, I don't know if you want to go there, because you don't know if they're ready to buy a business or not. But maybe they are, but they really are more interested in the passion part of it. So I think that there's ways to look within your brand and find other avenues to get in front of your ideal candidate.
Yeah, well, I'll lean in on some content that was shared earlier with me about a Jersey Mike study that they did, where they were trying to, this data, where they were trying to figure out like which one of our franchisees are the most successful. And it wasn't, everybody's like, I want the Ivy League MBAs with that are hyper capitalized. That's what everybody thinks is the best candidate. No, that's your middle of the road. Like they'll operate pretty well, but they'll never be your shining stars. But it was the people who are passionate about the brand. They figured out the financing side of it, but they were eager to pick up every day. So I mean, so I think that the Happy Cat Hotel story is a perfect example of what you'd mentioned before. Is like find people that are adjacent to your brand, that are interested in the same things. I love that insight. That's a good strategy and a good way to think that'll lead you down a lot of important roads that can guide you to the right candidates.
Right. Because now we've got multiple ponds. And so Chris Ramos just fishing from this one little pond by himself for franchise opportunity seekers, but all of us are all in this other pond. So I think it's a great way to look around in a different light, I guess.
Yeah. Liane, you're phenomenal. I appreciate you coming and sharing all these insights. What's the best way for everybody to get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you and ask you questions or learn more?
Sure. I mean, I think LinkedIn is probably the best way to find me. So my name is spelled funky, but I'm sure it's in those show notes. But Liane, Liane, and last name is Caruso, Caruso.
Yeah. Well, Liane, thanks again for joining us. You've been fantastic. I sure appreciate you.
Thank you, Dave.